Today on the show, we got a jam-packed round of 16 podcast coming up for you. We've got USA humiliation. Mexico and England play an instant classic. Argentina storms back from 2-0 down to beat Egypt. Controversy? Maybe. We'll talk about it. Canada bows out heroically to Morocco as the much better team, according to Jesse Marsh. Brazil is out. Portugal is out. Spain and Norway are the beneficiaries there. And then we'll finish up with a little France, Paraguay, Switzerland, Colombia. That's all coming up, plus a little round of quarterfinals. Just say quarterfinals. I almost said round of 8. Preview coming up. That's all next after the jingle. Live from San Jose, California, and Brooklyn, New York, at the Any Given Thursday podcast. It seems like the World Cup has only just started and yet has also been a lifetime. We're down to just, 8 remaining games if you include the third place games, too?
Yep.
8 remaining games, that's it. We just watched 8 in the last 4 days. We actually have a day off from the sport tomorrow. What is that? When was the last time we had a day? I guess it would have been June 10th, the day before the World Cup started. We've had almost a full month of at least 2 games on every single day, which is insane. My brain is a little broken.
Well, even then, tomorrow we have Champions League qualifiers going on. First round.
Woo! Yeah, if we have any new listeners at all, realize that we have a different subject that we normally cover. And it's way more interesting than the World Cup. Trust me. Trust me. Shamrock in Malta? Are you not entertained? Come on. They did? That was today? I thought that was yesterday. Oh, shit. I thought that was tomorrow. Pico, is that what Pico Lopez was complaining about? Maybe. Our sweet boy Pico? Oh, man, if they go out to a Maltese team, that's so embarrassing. Second leg to come back, though. All right, let's get rolling here because I have a heart out. Top story here. We have to start with the CONCACAF teams, right? Specifically USA and Mexico. We're American. I don't know if either of us would claim to support the U.S. men's national team ahead of our European old countries, which we've followed extensively our whole lives. Maybe you're different than me. I always had a little bit of a hard time identifying with the American team growing up. Maybe because I had sort of like my dad spent a lot of time in Europe in his younger years and brought that back with. So I always grew up watching the English League, German, Spain. I grew up watching everything but American football except for the Chicago Fire, essentially. And I just never really identified that strongly with the team, and the stars and stripes and all the patriotism stuff always rang a little hollow for me. So I don't know. Part of my feelings about this are more Pochettino coded than they are actually American coded. But I don't know. I'm curious to hear what your thoughts are on that.
I feel like I embrace the U.S. national team and like the patriotism side of it a little more than you. But I kind of agree that like for me, because I got into the sport mostly through my Zia and Zio and cousins who all live in Italy. So for me, it was like, oh, well, this ethnic heritage side of things is really important to my interaction with the sport. And then I never really had, at least until we got to college, really, I didn't have a lot of friends who were even into soccer at all, or people to talk about the game with. So my embracing of the U.S. national team is a little later than I probably wanted it to be. But I do think the growth, like, this is going to lead in probably to some of our discussions later on. I've seen a lot of people being like, well, we got to stop calling MLS guys. Like, players just need to go to Europe. The only reason I feel any connection to this U.S. team is because I've watched a lot of these guys play in the MLS, or now I'm watching guys who are hopefuls who are also playing in the USL, right? Like, having a strong domestic league is only going to make our national team better. And if you're encouraging people and saying you can only make the national team if you go to Europe, you're damaging. That's going to be damaging to the national team in the long run. And it's probably why we're where we are now.
Well, I think it's not like going to Europe is a bad thing. Obviously, it's not if you're, trying to be a top level player. But like, I care less about the league and more. I mean, I think the obvious answer that everybody ignores is the development thing, the pay to play, not stuff we need to all get into in this episode because there's no time. But I mean, bridging this into the game, like what we watched so far from the U.S. at this tournament and what we saw in the Belgium game were two completely different things. It was like an unrecognizable team. Essentially everything went wrong. There are too many things to even get into. Like, we haven't even had a chance to talk about the Balogun thing yet because we had recorded the night before that happened on our last episode. But I think the number one takeaway for me from the whole game was the mental weakness on display from the players, from many of the players, most of the players. It was something that I thought maybe they'd overcome some of in the Bosnia match because they went down to 10. They felt wrongfully and were able to do a very beyond adequate, even impressive job of still holding on to the control of the game under sort of difficult circumstances and facing some adversity, which is not something they've coped well with as a national team in the past. But it seemed like the moment was too big for them, and I don't know how, like, you can put that on Pochettino if you want and the coaching staff, but I really feel like you have to look at the players first here because, like, the individual performances that we saw, Dest was abysmal. It was the worst game he's ever played for the U.S. by far. The first goal is completely
had some
his fault.
stinkers before then.
This was so bad. And the magnitude of the game. We were playing to go to a quarterfinal of the World Cup at home. That first goal, the ball's in the air. He just stares at it, lets it drop in the box for no reason. It leads right to the first de Ketelaere goal. He also lets Trossard get baseline for Belgium's second goal 2 minutes after the Tillman equalizer, and allows that cross. Ream had a terrible game. We've been praising him all tournament, I think rightfully. But de Ketelaere absolutely just climbs over him for that second goal. You can't let that happen. The guy weighs like 100 pounds. You know, what are we talking about here? I mean, like, okay, if that's the club season, maybe he gets a foul there. But that's beside the point. You can't get manhandled in that situation. And then we get to poor Freese, who actually started off the game with a fantastic save. Looked like potential stability there for most of the tournament, and then he has this all-time howler that is that is Belgium's third goal, and I mean that's going to be remembered as one of the worst goalkeeping errors in World Cup history. I think it's completely embarrassing, and in both of these instances, you'll notice this is when the U.S. twice looked like they might get back into the game. Tillman gets the deflected free kick to equalize against the run of play. And then Dest, Ream, and the rest of the defense combine to wipe that away immediately, which can't happen. Then, 2-1, all right, we played terribly. More promising start to the second half, and then Freese gives that ball away from nothing. And it's 3-1, and that completely deflates the team. And then, of course, to cap it off, Richards, the oft-reliable Palace center back, gives the ball to Lukaku away in the box for his goal, and then the Lukaku makes sure he rubs it into the maximum. He gives the L to the fans in the crowd and then does the Trump dance. They did it again to YMCA in the locker room afterwards, which is all fair play for me. Yeah, I thought absolutely. The Belgium FA, like, their tweets got a little bit much. But the thing that hurts for me here is, like, I feel like we were so close to coming together a little bit more as a, soccer nation. And what Trump has done with this Balogun situation is once again, like, divide us between, the cable news pundits that don't know anything about soccer and are, like, asking Raj on First Take, like, who the fuck Fowler Balogun is, like 2 weeks ago. And now they're like, oh, can you believe the red card against Balogun? He's our best player. And it's like, you've never watched them play. And those of us who have grown up watching soccer from age 1, and I think most American fans who are really diehard footballing fans tend to be on the more liberal side of the scale politically and socially. Actually, more so than most other countries in the world. I'm not saying we have better fans. I'm saying that's just the way it's shook out in the history of the game here, especially in the 21st century. So it's it really sucks for people like us, I think, to have this whole situation tainted by an administration that everybody in the rest of the world hates, Obviously, we do too. And then now there's this perception of us that we've like thumbed the scales in our favor and have been rightfully punished for it, you know? And so now everybody's like mocking the country for it. And it's like, it just sucks for those of us who have been there for a long time. And it sucks for the players like Balogun too, who's handled it very classily the whole time. He even went up to Rudy Garcia to talk about it. He's just been like a gentleman through this whole thing. The whole thing just sucks. It just left this dirty taste in our mouths from a tournament that was so fun for American fans, and it just didn't have to be that way. Why does everything have to suck, David?
Even if we'd won this game, all right, like I would have had a little bit of a dirty taste in my mouth too.
Of course.
Because it would have felt a little undeserved, Balogun having this suspended sentence, which has never been done in the history of the World Cup. You know, and I'll touch it briefly since we didn't have the chance to talk about it before. I've seen a lot of people comparing it to something that happened in the 1960s when Garrincha picked up a red card and then was allowed to play in the final in the next game. And while there's some parallels, there was not an automatic suspension for a red card back then. So it's not the same thing. FIFA had the actual discretion to make that decision and didn't have to create a new rule in order to implement it. I've also seen it compared to FIFA changing the rules before this World Cup about yellow card accumulation in qualifiers no longer carrying over to the World Cup, which I think that was just the right decision by FIFA, and they've applied that uniformly. It's why Ronaldo was allowed to play, because they were saying red cards and suspensions accumulated in the friendlies and the qualifiers right before. We shouldn't take
they did it
away your ability to play
nefariously
in the World Cup.
They did it nefariously. Yeah.
But they applied it unilaterally, right? So I think there's a difference there in that they did it so Ronaldo could play, but they applied it fairly across the board, right?
You're saying this means Kwanzaa should be starting against Norway. It's only right.
Well, I mean, kind of, yeah. Even
based on their own rules,
was very much a red card.
That one was way more of a red card than Balogun's was a red card. Yeah, that's for sure.
Even as someone who thought Balogun's red card was more defensible than the average person does, it didn't compare to Kwanzaa's. Kwanzaa's was a red card for sure.
It was a red.
But yeah, it left a bitter taste in my mouth going into the game. It kind of took away some of the enjoyment I had in the build up to it, and it almost made it easier to swallow this kind of result though, because I was like, well, we're kind of getting our comeuppance. Like, we tried to cheat the system. We tried to game it as hosts, but
we did it.
Makes us a true footballing nation.
Yeah, right. We're just like Argentina. You know, as a Dutch fan, I have some history with Argentina, and they completely cheated in '78. So to steal the last opportunity of the Dutch golden generation. So that was a totalitarian administration that essentially coordinated that. But we won't. It's another podcast as well. The last thing that sucks about this, though, is that it's fucking Belgium, and they're not that good. I know they're Belgium, and they're, like, have a better history. I know. They have good players. This is not that good of a team. They were so lucky to be here. Senegal beat the hell out of them for 85 minutes and gave away the round of 32 game. Like, they don't deserve to be in the quarterfinal. They've played terribly until this game. We made them look amazing. All that being said, they were great. They were great in this game. It's the best they've seen them play in a long time. And they all deserve credit for it. This was clearly highly motivating for them. De Ketelaere played the game of his life. After having an awful tournament so far.
Kind of something that we talked about in the previous
I know you're
Belgium
taking your big
was...
De Ketelaere victory lap, aren't you?
Well, De Ketelaere is a very good player, but he cannot play with Kevin De Bruyne.
Mm-hmm.
Because he just doesn't make the runs that De Bruyne wants him to make. He wants to move into the space that KDB is already occupying. So it doesn't work very well. And I think here we're seeing what Belgium probably should have been doing previously in order to get the best out of their players. I'm not coming out saying Charles de Ketelaere is a world-class striker right now, but he's a very, very good one. And he was essentially neutered by the formation that they were playing in previously. And I think to an extent, it also hurt Trossard and Tielemans, right? Who Trossard wants to kind of come in behind as in front of the back line and look for curling balls and crosses there. Tielemans wants to make those late runs, but all that space is taken up by Kevin De Bruyne, who is not offered a lot this tournament. And I think this is a step in the right direction for Belgium for figuring out how they can actually compete in the later rounds. Because if they snuck past this game, but still trotted out that same 11 from the round of 32 in the group stage, I would have zero faith that they could even compete in the quarterfinals.
Good luck against Spain. I'd have to give I would give Rudy Garcia credit if I could. You might have to torture me to drag that sentence out of me, so I'll move past it. He did have spectacular pit stains yet again, though. Quality. The last thing I'll say here, let's just talk about Pulisic for a minute. Where do we begin? I think, let me start with the positive. The positive from this tournament with Pulisic is that I don't think we should feel as American fans that he needs to be the center or the leader or the best player of the team anymore. Because we've proven there's a lot of quality in this team. McKennie, Tillman, Adams, Balogun, Robinson, right? These players are all, I think, at least of the same quality in terms of technical talent as Pulisic, and they're frankly proven to be better overall players now. They just have been. Like, Pulisic he's an up and down player a little bit. Like, when he's hot, like he was at his first season at Milan, he's great. After he did the Trump dance and he was cursed by God, and has scored like 1 goal since then, which is maybe fact. I don't know. It's like 1 or 2 goals, almost none.
I think it's 1 goal since then.
Yeah, that he's just a little bit. I don't think he's that mentally strong of a player. Like, he lets things get. You could tell all day. Like, he's injury prone as hell. Right? He picks up that knock after playing 1 great half. The only good half he played at the World Cup, really. I guess he was okay against. He was okay against.
I thought he was
Bosnia.
good against. He was good against Bosnia. I thought when he came on against Turkey, I thought he individually played well, but the team itself had already kind of dug their grave by that point. So it was kind of like unnecessary minutes.
Have you seen how many times he turned the ball over in the first half of this game? He lost possession.
Oh yeah, no, he was very.
It was 11 times in 45 minutes. Oof. 11 times. That's more than any other player on the field who played full 90. 11 times. And he sulked around, pouting. He was down on the ground holding his calf or whatever, and then he got axed after like 50-some minutes. And just like sat on the...
because he got hurt, right?
Sure. He put his head in his hands and like pouted around. I'm like, get on the sideline. You're supposed to be the leader of the team. You were the captain of the team before. Try to pump up the fellas. Like, what are we doing? It was loser behavior, David. I don't usually come on here with that kind of podcast energy, but I am today. I'm sick of him. He's a hard guy to root for at this point, isn't he?
I think to some extent, though, I'm not disagreeing with that he's a hard guy to root for, and I think his mentality is not that of somebody who is a leader on this team. And I don't know what's going on behind closed doors, right? He might not be a backroom leader for this team, but at least publicly he is. And I think that's why, to an extent, he's getting
all the commercials
a bit because he's like the public face of the team. But it has allowed, I think, some people in the media to kind of gloss over how bad the rest of the team also was and just shove it all on
everyone
Pulisic,
was bad, yeah.
Who, yes, he had a bad game, but yeah, he was not the worst player on the pitch.
No, it was Dest.
Both Richards and Ream
was Dest.
and Dest.
Dest got axed at halftime for a reason.
Adams was atrocious.
Yeah.
And these are all, honestly, the only player I thought that came away looking at least like he belonged on the pitch with Belgium was Alex Freeman. Even Tillman, outside of the free kick, I don't think was very good.
I don't think Freeman played that well either, but
I thought Freeman was like the only one who was serviceable.
Yeah. Tillman gets a little... Tillman's had such a good
but
tournament and has been so exciting that he's clearly feeling himself and looked a little bit like... He always does one back heel too many, but when the one comes off that leads to a big chance, you have to... that's just kind of the player he is a little bit. Like, he has to try things for that sort of inspiration. But I thought, like... But being the the leader and the guy that was going to bring the USMNT back, like, it's just not really an acceptable way for him to go out of his home World Cup, especially after the quotes, where he did that interview before the tournament where he's like, oh, it's just another tournament. Everybody bagged on him for that. I just wonder if we've moved. I think it's good, though, that we can collectively start moving past Pulisic as the center of the team and treat it more like a collective, because that's when they were at their best in this tournament. playing this Pochettino system, when they're playing really exciting, fast interchanging, vertical football. I think that's something they can build on. But right now, they played like ass, and they're just gonna have to live with that now. Like there's no silver lining here. They just gotta have to sit in the muck now.
That's kind of the beauty of the World Cup too, is right? Like one bad game. This was,
Yeah.
I know a lot of people are saying like, oh no, this US team wouldn't hold a candle to like 2010. And I think to an extent that is just reactionary, right? Because this was a terrible game, and we've gone out in the past by having some good teams that went out playing well, but ran up against someone better. And here we ran up against someone better and we just collapsed. But I think there's a lot of positives that once we get away from the World Cup, we'll be able to take from this team. And it's still a fairly young team. Obviously, some positions like center back, we're starting somebody who is half retired, right? Like there we hopefully...
He was good most of the tournament too.
He was.
Not today.
And
he looked
kind of surprisingly good.
He looked off today, obviously. But
Mhm.
yeah, he surprised me too.
Right. And I think there's positives to take from this team, but obviously with it being so fresh and that performance being so bad, it's kind of hard to sit here and point out the positives, right? When 11 players, well, I guess we can also include the substitutes, so 16 players played poorly.
Most of them played poorly for most of the game. I do think I don't think this means the Pochettino, I don't call it experiment, but like this phase of the national team was a disappointment. Quite the opposite. I feel like they reached the highest levels we've seen them play in the group stage, those first couple of games, and the Bosnia game. I think that's like something to build on, like not shy away from. But there's clearly a lot more under the surface that needs to be explored that maybe wasn't fixable in just 2 years here. Especially when your best players like opt out of the Gold Cup. Like that can't really be happening anymore, I don't think. If they want to, they need to be like taking their opportunities to, advance as high as they can go, I think. But
yeah, we might need to do a whole episode just about where the U.S. can go from here in order to get all our thoughts out. So
this
I think
is a
we should
much
probably
bigger
move on
story
before
I think.
before we just talk about this ad nauseum.
Indeed. Let's do Mexico 2-3 England. Because this is a CONCACAF segment, we're going to start with Mexico and then we'll do England second. I think this was just one of the great World Cup games I've ever seen. We've had a couple of those in this tournament. Some of the drama and spectacle at this World Cup has been, really the best thing about it. I think Mexico is one of the great atmospheres we've seen at a World Cup too. It was so unbelievably loud at the Azteca. I think Mexico their first overall emotion should be pride for the performance here, for how far they pushed England. They gave everything. They provided great entertainment. They made England dig so deep. They turned it into a CONCACAF game, which is what they would have wanted, right? And they forced England into the muck. And they responded brilliantly from being 2-0 down, almost drawing level after just 10 more minutes of play before the first half ended. At the same time, they were down 2-0 because of mistakes and errors, and they lost the plot in transition on both of those first half Bellingham goals. The first was off just Pickford just rolled it to Rice, and Rice ran like 60 yards untouched with the ball. That led to Bellingham's first. And then little baby Gilberto Mora turns the ball over straight off the kickoff because he doesn't see Elliot Anderson running in from behind. Steals it from him. Suddenly it's 2-0. And then back at 2-1, England pick up the red. Mexico looks like they have all the momentum, and they give away a penalty from a Pickford boot. Like, it was a direct ball from Pickford's box all the way. Ederson Alvarez fucks up an aerial duel with Kane. Suddenly, Gordon's getting tripped by the keeper in the box, and it's 3-1. So, like, they both played brilliantly and stupidly at the same time, which is, I guess, what makes it a great CONCACAF spectacle. And finally, they had, 25, 30 minutes of game, I guess 30 minutes with the added time, down 3-2 after their penalty got them back in it, where they got close, but they didn't threaten England in the way you'd think. They just put in a lot of crosses. So I think, it's a both an unbelievable performance and a huge missed opportunity simultaneously. What do you think about all
and
that?
I was a little disappointed with the end of the game, and
Yeah, they
it was
just ran out of
exciting to
ideas,
watch.
right?
Yeah, it was just cross after cross after cross after cross, and England had at this point brought on Dan Burn and John Stones. They still had Konsa and Gahey out there. I mean, you're putting the cross in against some absolute behemoths in the box, right? England have a lot of big boys back there. And it's not something that Mexico have been particularly strong at in this tournament. They didn't really have the players who could take advantage of these crosses either, right? Santi Jimenez is brought on late, leading the line along with Raul Jimenez, and neither
I mean, it was
of them are
only Raul, right? Jimenez was the only
Yeah,
one.
neither of them are particularly good in the air, and Santi is.
Yeah, but
it's probably
Jimenez
his
was good in the air
weakest aspect.
today. Jimenez had
Yeah.
two of the best headed attempts I've ever seen. They were unbelievable. He was
Yeah.
so good today.
To
Very
clarify,
quickly,
we're talking
Yeah.
Raul had some good headed moments. Yeah, Santi, it's probably the worst part of his game. It's probably the thing he's weakest at.
what is he good at
In-
again? I can't remember.
As a Milan fan, I can't think of a single thing. But
I'm having trouble remembering.
Before Milan, his movement was very good, and he can be quite quick and explosive. But competing in the box is not something you really want him to do, unless it's like on the counter and he's good at finding the right spaces to get on the end of crosses. But here, when you're trying to compete with 4 huge center backs, that's not the right guy to bring on. And to take off Quinones, who's going to put in some good crosses and is strong, relatively strong in the air for a winger, that felt like a weird move for Aguirre to do. But so I was a little frustrated with Mexico at the end because it felt like they just didn't really know what to do. And
But
they
we know
didn't
this
have a
about them,
plan
you know?
B. Yeah.
We know this about them, that they're not that good at creating from steadied possession. That's not really their strength. So, and
Mhm.
England, I thought, I'm going to get to them in 1 second, I promise, English fans. I thought they had a pretty smart game plan to exploit that, actually. They were kind of comfortable, even with 11 in the first half, they were pretty comfortable to bait them off the ball and then hit them the other way. Talk about that in a second. First, I just wanted to shout out Raul Jimenez in general, who was played the game of his life. He was brilliant. That first diving header attempt was one of the great attempts that didn't result in a goal I've ever seen. I think forced a brilliant save from Pickford, and then did another brilliant header where he receives the header like literally at like the 18 yard line at the edge of the box, and he somehow like loops it with power so that it's going like top netting, and Pickford has to lunge for another finger save. I just can't believe how good Jimenez looked. And then he scored the penalty, of course. I also wanted to give a shout out to Aguirre, who is having the time of his life on the touchline in this game, just living his best life. That sequence where they figured out what he was. It looked like he was arguing with Bellingham in that moment. It turns out the Spanish lip reader determined he was actually asking for his autograph after the game. A signed jersey, and then right when Bellingham walks away, they sort of smile at each other. Then he goes, "Hey, Gordon, fuck you," and then gives him a fiendish grin. It's the best. He is the best. He had a great tournament. I loved everything about him. Nice to have him back. Anyway, should we move on to England really quick here? And by really quick, I mean probably for 5 minutes.
Yeah, I mean, I actually don't have that much to say about England because I don't think this is a setup we'll see from them particularly often, with conceding this much of the ball this readily. But I think they just showed like they can beat you in so many different ways because Jude Bellingham and Harry Kane are playing out of their minds right now. And I thought Elliot Anderson had a great game as well. I thought he did a great job carrying the ball out of that midfield. A lot of really strong defensive contributions. So I'm not trying to say it's just Jude Bellingham and Harry Kane, but when they're playing like this, I mean, the rest of the team could just sit back and defend because if you got them the ball, they were going to have a great opportunity.
They're top shelf players playing top shelf stuff. I think I wanted to say more about the sort of mental side of this, like this kind of hurdle that they overcame, because as someone that would not readily cheer for England or Mexico, and thus was kind of content to watch this as a neutral on both sides, I was very entertained and impressed by how they were able to defend and play more direct and soak up what like was a series of conditions that was kind of stacked against them, which is not normally a thing you'd say about England at a major tournament. You'd usually be like, they're the bully underdogs, and they managed to like harness this sense that they've been sort of set up for failure here, I think, where it's like, we have to play at Azteca, we have to play at Mexico City. The conditions, the rain delay, the pitch was soaked, people yelling shit at them. I think they were quite mentally prepared for it in a way that I'm not sure any England team in history would have been. And then down the man for 40 minutes. Obviously Bellingham and Kane are amazing, but I think Pickford was sensational. He was like,
yes.
I've complained about Pickford being sometimes wrong for England the way they play now, because he seems like he forgets that he's not, playing for Moyes' Everton. But today he was. Like, they needed him to be that guy. They needed him to not just do his shot stopping, which is his strength, but he had to control the box. They wanted him to boot it long. He's like, fucking A, dude, I've waited forever to hear you say that. He sent like, it's Guardian Football Weekly said he counted Pickford had 26 long boots in the game. And he went back and counted every one. And I was like, God bless. Like, not only that, how about fucking Dan Burn coming off the bench, having the most clearances of any England player in just the 25 minutes he played. 2 blocks as well, including one on the penultimate corner of the game. Diving. Big old Easter Island head.
To do this exact thing, to say, hey, the other team's about to put in a lot of crosses. Dan Burn, get out there and just head everything. Did you see
he was fantastic.
I think it was Santi tried the bike kick, and Dan Burn's head is just right there.
It deflected off his head. Went to the halfway line.
The longest headed
went to the halfway line
in the history of the World Cup. Yeah,
it covered 60 yards. It was unbelievable. It was literally all hands on deck, including poor Jordan Henderson, who didn't actually play but somehow broke his wrist
and got a card.
He got a card. What did we do in Hendo? I also think I owe Anthony Gordon a little bit of an apology, because I said he shouldn't start this game, and then he was really good. He drew the penalty. I thought he created a few chances. He did not look like the physicality was too much for him whatsoever. He actually rose to it. So I want to give him a shout out. I think he's probably earned that starting job in the next game against Norway too, after that performance, because Rashford's been, we've kind of gone back and forth as to which winger we're going to seal down that starting job. And I think it's pretty clear after this game, but I don't know, different sort of game. Finally, the stats here. England had 6 shots, 33% possession, 14 touches in Mexico's box, 195 completed passes, 2 corners. Mexico, 20 shots, 67% possession, 37 touches in England's box, 418 completed passes, and 12 corners. But none of that really mattered, because I think Tuchel and his staff deserve a lot of credit. They lulled Mexico, as I said, into those kind of non-dangerous possession situations, and then broke so directly. They clearly ball carrying was something they had talked about too, where they thought they could hurt them. That Rice one leading to the first goal being a clear example. I just think they kind of nailed it, and then the Kwanzaa thing threw them into chaos, and they withstood. So I think this is a good sign. All that being said, Norway is a completely different sort of game, so I don't know if that means they're going to beat Norway, but I think this is a great sign for them to have that sort of mental fortitude to come back against Congo and then withstand this Mexico thing. They've experienced a lot already, and they haven't even played a quote-unquote contender yet. So
I think they've probably played the most diversity of styles and approaches of any team at the World Cup. So it's definitely, I think they're in a strong position to start figuring out, all right, we have figured out the strengths of our entire team. We know what works and what doesn't now that we've played all these different styles. Nothing should catch us by surprise anymore. And that could be a big advantage going against a Norway team that's kind of been doing the same thing over and over again, because plan A just keeps working for them.
Especially in a tournament this length with this many games and this much travel, it's more than ever, you're going to have to win in different ways, I think. So the next game will be different. 90 seconds on our final CONCACAF. Brethren lost. Canada 0. 3 Morocco. Morocco played the first half here like they'd never watched Canada play before. It was a bizarre performance, I thought, for them overall. Very much hungover from beating the Dutch in that triumph. Thankfully for them, Canada continues to have no fucking idea how to convert chances in the attacking third, so it didn't matter. And then Morocco just, wound up with 3 goals on their first 4 shots of the game. So whatever. They'll have to be like a million times better than that to have any chance against France, but I guess it counts. There's a bit of a Saibari injury concern, though, because he went off in the first half with a quad, I believe. And then Jesse Marsh proclaimed that he'd rather be him than them because they played better, I guess. Okay. Getting killed for that. Jesse Marsh.
He's always got some weird quotes. He's somebody with something to say. I'll put it that way.
I went from like so positive about Canada to like really frustrated with Canada by the end of this tournament, just because the same problems come up over and over and over, and they need to figure out how to score some bloody goals, man. It's crazy.
They thought they had it too, because Jonathan David, up until this last season, had been playing so well at a club level, and then he has the worst year he's had in a while, and it carried over to the World Cup. He's been out of form for a whole year, and they don't have really other options than him right now. Like, you're calling a pretty weathered down Kyle Larin or Promise David, who
easy what you say about Promise. We love Promise.
Some good
scored
things,
a great
goal
against
really
Switzerland
put
too.
Together.
Yeah.
He just hasn't put together like a long stretch of success in the way that you want to feel reliably, or the way that you would want to with the striker you have to rely on.
And it's not just the striker finishing, though. It's like the final ball into the strikers is often wrong, or the ball that leads to the ball. There's always like one of the elements of a build up to a goal where quality is lacking. And I don't think that's just like players' technique not being up to snuff. I think it's part of like the intensity of the system, a little bit of like the Red Bull philosophy that seems to carry around with Marsh a little bit at this point, where that piece is always missing. So it's something to watch. Let's move on to a crazy game, another instant classic of the World Cup. It's Argentina 3-2 Egypt. When Egypt were up 2-0 in the 75th minute, right before Cuti Romero drew him back to 2-1, I wrote down 4 factors that you need to take out a giant at the World Cup, David. And then they all went out the window just a few minutes later. But I'll walk you through them in more brief terms than I wrote them down. Number 1, you need an elite goalkeeping performance, right? Non-negotiable. They got that for 75 minutes, did Egypt. He saved a pen. He got a brilliant fingers tip stop at close range from Julian Alvarez. He controlled the box. And then he was so close to stopping both of those goals. My God, he got good hands to both. Number 2, you got to come out fast. You got to capitalize on a sluggish start. Exactly what they did. They caught Argentina kind of napping the first 15 minutes. Hit them with an early goal on their first shot. Great. Check. They have to execute their game plan relentlessly, right? They're like, I was a little worried about how it was trending for Egypt at the end of the first half. Came out the second half with great adjustments, really jammed Argentina centrally, took away their spaces, and then had just brilliant imagination in transition as well. The goal that was eventually disallowed, that we can talk about in a minute, that was one of the best counter-attacking goals I've ever seen. Like the run from Hassan, it was Hassan, right, who flew up the right. Brilliant, even though he gave away the penalty earlier. Fantastic goal, amazing pass from Salah, fantastic Zico finish. And then they scored another really good counter goal that did actually count not that long after. They scored 2 goals from their first 3 shots, and it would have been, or 3 and 4 if you want to count the one that was disallowed. Argentina had 0.18 XG, according to FOTMob, between minutes 45 and 75. Tremendous. And they were chasing the game. Fantastic. Number 4, you got to have luck. You got to have a ton of luck. You got to have Messi missing a pen, right? You got to have that kind of stuff. And they had done all of those things to a T, and then all of a sudden, completely unravels. I was not expecting this level of performance from Egypt, frankly, because I thought they'd looked okay at the tournament, but limited. Like, they were pretty pedestrian against Australia. They were pretty good against Belgium and New Zealand, but this is a different level. And it still wasn't enough because Argentina are unkillable, I guess. I don't, how would you describe what happened after that? Or before, whatever.
It almost felt like divine intervention, but instead of the divine, it was a man wearing yellow. But
Oh.
ooh, am I calling it corrupt? No, I'm not.
Everybody else is.
I think it's unlikely that it was rigged, but I think they got a lot of big team bias and benefited a lot from some pretty tight calls and getting a lot of 50-50
Should we just do should we just do the disallowed goal then? What do you think of that?
Yeah, I kind of teed it up.
What do you think about it? Give your take.
I just don't think it should have been disallowed. I think it was clean.
I agree.
Like,
well,
to go
he
back,
stepped on his foot, but
yeah.
It's more that I think it's a foul, like in open play. I think the ref should probably call it a foul because he stepped on his foot. But I think the issue is more how far away from the actual finish of it. It was literally the entire end of the pitch. Is more like the issue of whether that's kind of a sporting thing to do.
Yeah. And I understand that it's within the VAR parameters to go back and look at the change of possession. You know, even though this change of possession was so far back, but I agree, it felt very tenuous and unsporting. Right? Like, it felt like it was them being like, oh, well, we can't let Egypt score here. And I'm not saying that's what went through their mind. And if you're saying this is the most rigged game ever, which is a take I have seen now on Twitter and Reddit,
it's too far.
Well, we know for a fact that certain games were rigged. So,
yeah,
at previous World Cups. So I don't think it's the most rigged one we've ever seen. Go back and watch. People will say Italy, South Korea 2002. Go back and watch the Spain one. Some of those decisions are outrageous. It's much worse. I think here, it just felt like Argentina got a lot of the 50-50 calls. And sometimes when you're the bigger team, it's just that the referee instinctively feels like, oh, well, if Messi goes down, that's a foul. Or, oh, if Rodrigo de Paul and this Egyptian midfielder are going for the ball, Rodrigo de Paul played for Atletico. He's going to get there first. And it felt like it was kind of one of those type of performances from the referee where he just gave a lot of grace to the bigger team. So, yeah, it felt a little tough to watch in the stomach. And I was watching this on delay as well because I just didn't get to the game in time. So I was a little primed to look for these because I was getting all these texts about like, oh, what a terrible call. That's so bad. How could they do that? And so I'm like, I do have to admit that I was watching this game kind of being like, oh, I had to keep an eye out on this referee. So that might color my opinion on this.
I don't want to overgeneralize either about that take, but South Americans are kind of famously good at drawing calls. Like that's something that's well known. Allow me to play devil's advocate for a minute and just be an apologist for these takes. Like, he does step on his foot. That's clear. It's very far away from the goal. That is also true. But I'm playing devil's advocate. Feels like, second bit, VAR has just completely changed in usage from the group stage to the knockouts. I think that's inarguable. These things were being let go in the group stage. People were talking about the clear foul Messi had on Schlager against Austria before the build-up to the Argentina goal. That wasn't called the VAR. Very similar to this situation, except probably even more of a foul. So, yeah, that sucks. But VAR and the use of calling the ref over has been completely different in every possible... Like, they're just doing it way, 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 way more. Next, like, there's no doubt Argentina's benefited from a number of calls already at the tournament at the same time. Just because Egypt scored or went up 2-0 there doesn't mean that exact counter that put them up actually 2-0, however many minutes later, would have put them up 3-0. Like, that's not correlation.
If anything, it probably doesn't happen. Yeah.
Right. So we were probably working from 2-0 anyway. And actually, when they went up 2-0, because Argentina's level went way up once they fell 2 behind, the desperation. So they actually kind of bought themselves 8 extra minutes without that Argentine desperation. And shortened the amount of time Argentina had to come back from a 2-0 deficit. It's also not VAR's fault that Egypt allowed 3 goals in like 13 minutes, right? They couldn't keep Messi and Argentina out for that period. They were completely overwhelmed and failed at all the principles they had established in the first 75 minutes of the game. Now, the last thing I'll say, the shout for the Salah penalty right before Argentina go and score their winner. It's not a penalty. I'm sorry. It's just not.
That one,
he doesn't really make any contact with him. I'm sorry to say it.
That's a really
I'm
good
not
tackle
rooting for
by
Argentina,
Alvarez.
I promise. Like, it would have been an amazing story if Egypt pulled this off. It really would have. It would have been the great upsets of World Cup history in a knockout round. And it sucks that they couldn't hold on here, but they looked completely shell-shocked after giving up that rapid-fire double to Romero and then Messi, who, by the way, come on, we haven't even talked about Messi. Messi! Messi!
He just is always in the right spot at the right time. It's
what a
incredible.
contact on that hit too. It's unbelievable.
But I mean, even
Anyway,
through the
that's all I
mispen,
have to say.
Yeah, even with the mispen, he was incredible. And
Final
I do
thoughts
think-
here.
Yeah, I think I was really disappointed that Egypt, after they went up 2-0, they kind of seemed to abandon this idea of keeping Argentina out wide, and they allowed themselves to be played through the middle more readily. I do wonder how much Argentina bringing on Lautaro and having him and Julian Alvarez and Lionel Messi all out there at the same time, right? Not something you would do in a normal circumstance because you're getting absolutely zero defensive help from that combination of three guys. But in this
You could tell
situation,
in
it's just
transition.
hard. Yeah.
Every time
It's
they
just hard
lost the
to keep
ball, it was like,
track
oh no.
of. But it's three guys that are hard to keep track of. And that put a lot of pressure, I think, on Egypt, and they kind of folded under that once they had so many guys to mark, and they couldn't really keep up with the Argentinian pressure, which was
It felt like
kind of a shame to see.
Messi put like 800 dangerous balls in that 10-minute window after they went down 2-0. It's kind of unbelievable. Like, he just went up to a level I haven't seen in a while. And yeah, nice moment for Lautaro to get that winning assist. Enzo scoring the goal. We haven't mentioned Enzo scored the winner there, and it's been kind of like a stalwart for Argentina since he broke into the team at the last World Cup. So it's going to take more than that to kill them, apparently. I thought when that second goal went in, I was like, I think we've just seen the end of this iteration of the team, and Messi with Argentina. Not that easy, apparently.
I knew they were coming back.
Not that,
Because
only
people
because of
had
the
spoiled
text.
it for me, and I was watching on replay.
All right, last really good game to talk about here. Brazil won to Norway. Norway did it, David. We were both like feeling like this could happen, but not really willing to bet against Brazil and Carlo. But then Brazil kind of were who we thought they were in the end. They were a flawed team with a legendary coach, some good talent out there, but less world-class capability than in the past. Ancelotti's getting killed for his pretty negative tactics in this game for sitting off the ball as much as they did, and I get it. Like, they're Brazil. I think he was fearful of exposing the midfield and space, which has been one of the, turning the ball over in transition has been one of the weaknesses of the team. But he kind of approached this, I feel like he did some of his big European games in his second stint at Madrid, where it's like, yeah, sometimes they're a little negative, they sit off the ball, but like they take their chances and they find a way to win, and they just didn't take their chances in this game. Like, they had chances that could have won this game, and we wouldn't be having this conversation yet. I think we probably would eventually. But here, like, Guimarães misses a penalty, right? Endrick subbed on, has the second biggest chance of the game, and he fucking blows it. Like, can we stop with the Endrick noise now? Did that kill it finally? Is that it?
Yeah.
Are we done with that for now?
At least for another 2 years until the next Copa America. Yeah,
I mean, it was really poor from him. He's a 19-year-old kid. That's what I'm talking about. It's not that easy to do when
he's just got he needs time to develop, and he wasn't
Yeah.
ready to be the star for Brazil at this tournament, which is fine for a 19-year-old.
It's fine.
They're not all Neymar or Pele who break out as teenagers.
I will also say, like, if we're being kind here, Brazil is down like 5 starters in their 11 right now, right? Both fullbacks got injured. Paqueta is out this game, even though he wasn't very good at the tournament to begin with. Rafinha, obviously. And
I pushed back a
Militao.
little bit on Paqueta. I thought Paqueta had actually been better than I had anticipated this tournament. I thought
he's he's a starter,
pretty well.
and he was gone. That matters. Rafinha is a huge star. He's a global superstar for Barcelona.
And
he wasn't
a very
there.
good, promising young player, but he's not Rafinha yet.
Rafinha might well have taken one of those chances to put, maybe he takes the penalty. I don't know. And then it's 1-0 Brazil, or Endrick finishes that chance and it's 1-1 or 1-0, or big looping deflection that Nyland that gets a fingertip to goes in and it's 1-1. There was a lot of things that had to go right for Norway to win this game, and they did. So that's what I'll say in defense. At the same time, it's Brazil, right? It's Brazil. I get it. I get why people are upset. The concern I would have for Brazil moving forward is that listening to what all the legends said who were at the game, they all seem to have a different complaint about what's wrong with the team, and I feel like that really signifies where they are as like as a federation. Like, they don't seem to know what the solution is or how they should be playing, like, or what they should be prioritizing. I feel like that's the problem, and I'm not sure they know who they are anymore.
Have you seen the online discussion that I have stumbled upon about how the downfall of the Brazilian team is directly linked to the rise of Protestantism in working class Brazilians? And that if they went back to Catholicism, that they would be much better off.
Well, they hired an Italian, so I don't know what more you want.
Yeah, so maybe they're working toward bringing Catholicism back.
Yeah. There was some, I talked that he looked like a Real Madrid team of Carlos. Does he secretly just want the Italy job? A little bit of an Italian performance.
Dude, the fact that he clearly does it. There's Carlo and the Italian FA, or the Italian system, FIGC. They're not on good terms right now, and you could kind of see that. CB is such a good fit for what
who is on good terms with
wants
Italy.
To do. But the point about the Brazil Catholicism versus Protestantism thing that is relevant is that they were pointing to how the Brazilian national team has gotten very like workmanlike, and it's less about the joy and the individual expression of the players. And I do think there is some truth to that, in that like they've kind of over the last 12-ish years been veering away from what made the Brazilian national team, and that I do think maybe if you kind of can lean into your sporting identity, that can help carry your team through some periods where maybe the talent isn't as strong as you would like it to be.
Yeah, but Norway, the talent isn't as strong as their best iterations. That's true, but also like I wonder if that's a youth thing too, related to that. Like if they're developing players differently than they used to. I don't know. Someone I don't know the details of this, but
I don't live in Brazil, so I can't actually speak to the validity of this claim. I know, crazy. I do look very Brazilian. But there were people who were saying that Protestantism, as opposed to Catholicism within poor Brazilian communities, is much more insular. And so that players who are like Protestants are less likely to then join academies and clubs because their parents want them raised in more of like a traditional church environment than Catholics, who typically are a little more expressive and like engage a little more with the rest of Brazilian cultural institutions. So I don't know how true that is, but I have seen people saying that. So maybe that is like a factor in why their youth development isn't quite as strong as it used to be.
This is just part of your international crusade to topple Protestantism.
Get rid of Protestantism.
Ridiculous.
Yeah. I'm starting.
I will say it's 6 straight tournaments now. 6 straight tournaments. Brazil's gone out to the first Euro team they faced in the knockouts. Where do we go from here? Anything to say about Neymar before we talk about Norway for a second?
No.
Let's leave that to the others. Norway, this is the biggest win in their history, I think. 2 in a row now against really good opponents, where they've had both composure, killer instinct, and of course Erling Braut fucking Haaland, who isn't such a killer. But we know Haaland is amazing. How about Nyland, who we thought was the worst player on the team and might still be, but holy shit, we thought he was the weak link. He was stupendous. He saved a penalty. He had a couple of other huge saves. By the end, he was so confident he was talking shit to Neymar as he stepped up for that last meaningless penalty. I loved it. And we got to give Solbakken a lot of credit. Nusa and Sorloth hooked at halftime, even though Nusa hadn't been that bad, and he was the star of the previous game. Shelderup and Bob comes on to replace them. They're both great. Shelderup assists Haaland twice, one of our James Rodriguez contenders. I thought that was a bit of a stroke of genius, and all around, they could have lost this game, but they didn't, so that's good. Woohoo!
And their composure in the back line when they have the ball is really great too. Like, they are involved in build up, and they're keeping their team in possession and in control when they want to, which is something that not a lot of teams have the ability to do, is to play that calmly out of the back. So really, really impressed by the the non-stars on Norway, I think, have been one of the most impressive group of players at the tournament.
Yeah, we were wondering what that would look like. Ayer had a couple of dicey moments at first. He gave away the penalty. Was a little worried about him. He shaped up. Odegaard as well. Didn't look like he was having the best first half. He was turning the ball over a lot. Wasn't looking as sharp as he usually did. He rebounded really well in the second half. That they have a little more mental quality than maybe I was expecting as a unit for being so new to this sort of atmosphere, especially having not been in a major tournament since 98. So yeah, all around, fantastic signs for this generation of the team, and they have a shot against England, I think.
Yeah,
Spain
any team with
won.
Haaland has a shot. So
indeed, God, what a fucking who was it that I forgetting to credit who mentioned this in a tweet, but said something that it was like Haaland looks like that ref cam of him, and then the BBC released the POV cam, recreation cam, digital recreation cam of poor Gabriel when he's just like,
that's one of the best.
And then Haaland comes flying by him and he lands on his ass. He's like a predator in the jungle, He's just sort of like walking around, and then all of a sudden he's like, whoa, and it's the winner. Spain 1-0 Portugal. I thought this game overall was just an incredible disappointment. Was not a good watch. And I thought Spain were weirdly cavalier in their approach in this game. Like, didn't play with enough pace. There were a bunch of times, I should have counted them, where somebody gets to the end line, does a classic cutback across the box, and nobody was in the box. Like, they hadn't made the run. That their creativity looked weirdly absent. Lamine Yamal was not good in this game for the most part. He was just pressing in all the wrong ways, in a way that looked a bit frustrated. It wasn't a very classically Spanish performance in this version of the team. And I was wondering if something might happen that deflection or Portugal just nicked one with a bit of quality, and then we'd be sitting here wondering what the hell that was from Spain. Instead, a couple of subs combined, Marino slips in for a good goal and they get through. But in the end, this feels more like a Portugal conversation than Spain, because they offered essentially nothing for this entire, 2 shots on target, I think, and they were both sort of meh Ronaldo chances. They were a little more aggressive in the first half, but they also could have been behind, because Oyarzabal sneaks through and just misses a chance he usually sticks in the back of the net. And if Costa didn't have such a good tournament with his shot stopping, that Baina who hit that lovely curler, that probably would have gone in. They just did almost nothing, and how many times do we have to reiterate that they have one of the best midfield units of talent that we've seen in a long time as a collective, and they don't do anything together. And is this all because of Ronaldo? Is it Ronaldo and Roberto Martinez's tactics? Where do we even begin here?
Because it's not just Ronaldo. When Roberto Martinez late in the game, he brings on Chico Conceição, a player who is so great in one-on-ones and is incredible on the dribble. Very, almost a little Rafael Leao coded, but a small version, because he's very tiny as a player. But he also brings on Bernardo Silva, who is a slower paced midfielder who likes to drift to the right side, where Chico Conceição likes to play. So even when they were able to draw 4, 5, 6 defenders over to the left-hand side, because Spain were collapsing everybody on Leao every time he got the ball, if they could get those switches of play over to Chico, well, guess what? Bernardo Silva's in his way, and now there's 2 defenders there. And so even if he dribbles past somebody, there's still not an opportunity for a cross. It felt like Roberto Martinez looked at what was the best skill of his wingers and said, how do I neutralize this? How do I make it so they can't do what they're good at? And it worked. He found the solution. Because Leao had no space, because Ronaldo keeps drifting over to him, bringing extra defenders. And you are keeping your midfielders kind of hanging back, right? Didn't see a lot of good runs from Neves. Didn't see much from Vitinha when he was out there. I know he gets subbed off in the 80th minute, right? So he and Leao weren't out there together a lot, but we're not seeing those runs. We're not seeing good overlaps from Dallo on the left side, Semedo, I think, was on the left side. We're not seeing good overlap runs from the fullbacks. So if Leao does
Mendes was good, but
Mendes was out by the time
and he went off injured.
Yeah.
He was their most dangerous looking player, and he's their fullback.
Yeah. I really, really hated the setup that Roberto Martinez had in this game. And I feel like we said
very
it
frustrating
multiple times throughout the tournament that there were times he just set them up, I think, for failure. And some of it is Ronaldo based, but it's not just Ronaldo, because I think he showed that even at his age, there are ways to use him and have success, but he can't do it all anymore. And it was
you can't do much anymore.
It was limiting to the team, I think, for the most part, especially in this game where if you're down a goal, those last 10 minutes, like in added time, they were terrible because you want Ronaldo in there getting crosses, but Leao can't put in good crosses.
And who was the one guy that got it on the end of a cross and almost scored? Smallest guy on the field.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like, I shouldn't feel excited not to have to watch this team anymore. They're so fucking talented. And I'm like, oh, thank God Portugal is out. It's insane that I feel that way. For Ramos not to even get a minute on the field chasing the game is insane. I will. The one thing I'll say to defend Martinez is that everyone's like, oh, the second golden generation he's wasted. A, different with Portugal, because this generation is mostly young. And B, he didn't really fail with Belgium. They finished third in a World Cup. They're Belgium. I mean, that's pretty good for Belgium. Like, let's pump the brakes a little. They have to win the World Cup to be a successful campaign. Like, chill out. But yeah, he fucked this up bad. We're going to do 60 seconds on the next two games because we're running out of time. Okay. Ready? France 1-0 Paraguay. Anything to say about this other than the racist Paraguayan senator?
Yeah. I thought this was a good mental test for France to go through a team that was going to play the dark arts and going to be feisty with them. And I think they handled it well. I think this was a chance for France to set themselves up for failure in the next round by drawing too many cards or picking up a red, just falling into this kind of pushing and shoving. And they did a good job mostly to avoid that, despite some pretty difficult refereeing decisions as well in this game.
Yeah, Paraguay not getting a single card in this game was something. Switzerland, Colombia, we just watched. 0-0, Switzerland wins on penalties. Why do I feel like this is a missed opportunity for Colombia here? Like, they just didn't do enough.
Yeah, they were a little too passive. I think both teams kind of wanted to possess the ball a little too much, right? I'm obviously no Manzambi, so I think you see where the Swiss team was coming from with their choice to kind of possess you to death. But I would have liked to see Colombia, but I think they just lack a little bit of the pace to punish teams like a Switzerland. But really great.
They've missed a killer instinct in the final third all tournament. Like, that's been their one drawback. They look the part everywhere except in the final third right now. Luis Diaz was not good in this game. But that said, I probably came away thinking they're, without Manzambi anyway, that they're more dangerous and probably should have found a way through, especially that Campaz chance with like 5 minutes to go and extra time when Xhaka just fucks up and gives him the ball and he blazes it over. That's going to live with him for a long... And then he should miss his penalty, too. That's just going to stick with him for a long time, and Colombia fans, who are just everywhere in this country. And New York is just flooded with yellow shirts, and this is going to be hard to see the after
I should have
effects.
worn my Colombia jersey.
You should have.
They probably would have won if I put it on.
Credit to Switzerland. I got to say, I don't love watching them all the time. But two teams that are very tactically and defensively astute, I'll say that. Other stuff, before we get out of here, we just got to mention this golden era of superstars here that we're watching is kind of, you don't usually get this all at one tournament, right? Like, all these people playing to the level they're capable. Talking Messi, Mbappe, Kane, Haaland, Bellingham, Elise, Dembele, Vinicius. Yamal hasn't even gotten going yet, really, because he started off injured. Even Salah making a round of 16 run with Egypt. Like, this is a privileged time to be watching the sport in terms of its superstar output, I think.
For a second, I thought you were just going to be listing off the entire French team there.
Yeah, well, not Rabiot. I'm gonna do my quick quarterfinal power rankings here. Are you ready?
Mm-hmm.
Yep. France, number 1.
I'm with you.
Spain, number 2. Argentina, number 3. England, number 4. Do you think England should be above Argentina?
I think there's an argument. I still lean Argentina because I had them pretty far ahead at the start of the tournament. But England have played better in the knockouts.
Yep. 5 Norway. 6 Morocco. 7 Switzerland. 8 Belgium.
I might switch Belgium and Switzerland, but otherwise I think I agree with your rankings. And I'm not even positive I'd switch Belgium and Switzerland, but that'd be the only place I might disagree with you.
Finally, I should say. We'll do a little social media thing for this, but really quick thoughts, predictions. France, Morocco. Morocco's good, but can they actually compete in this game? One sentence.
I think if Morocco can find the space behind France's fullbacks, that's where they can beat them. But Saliba has adapted so well after kind of a slow start to covering that wide space, and he looks like he's picking up really well for any space left behind Digne.
Bit of a run-on sentence, but I'll allow it. How about Spain, Belgium? Does Belgium have any chance here after spanking a bad U.S. team performance?
If Spain just miss a lot of chances, I think Belgium have a shot. That's it.
What are the odds Norway beats England out of 100?
I think Norway have
40?
I think Norway have a pretty good chance.
40 to 60? 45, 55? Where are we at?
I think 46. I think 46. You have to lean
slight
England
underdogs
on this one, but Norway have looked so good, and you really only need a sliver of space for Nusa or Haaland to change the game.
Or Shelder up. I'll go 45-55. I think this is the most even game for sure. And then Argentina, Switzerland. What can Switzerland do? Anything? Argentina are actually begging to be beaten.
Yeah. I think the Swiss pace kind of plays into them having a chance here because it's not going to be a high-scoring game. Right? This is going to be a 1, maybe 2 goal game. So Switzerland can keep this pace a little slower, prevent Argentina from building up and kind of snowballing this game. They'll be in with a shout.
Monzambi's would be so useful if he could get back because Argentina's had such trouble in defensive transition, and like they just need someone who can drive the ball, and I don't know if they have that without him. Other than Ndoye, maybe, I don't know. Embolo's hold up is good, but he's not pacey. I don't know. I think they can definitely set up pretty tactically astutely on the defensive side of the ball, though we'll have to see. We got a day to think about the semifinal or the quarterfinals before they kick off on Thursday. Enjoy your day off, everybody. David, do you have a cheers for me?
Oh boy. Honestly, I kind of want to cheers to Jakin, the Swiss coach, because I feel like they're outside of Norway. They're kind of like the fun underdog team that nobody kind of expected to be in the quarterfinals. So I feel like and
they finally got over their round of 16 hump, where they make the round of 16 of every tournament and then inevitably lose that game. So why not? Sure. Yeah. A little underwhelming.
He's a good looking guy. So
his hair is very much not neutral. Oh, I got one in. We're on our way out. Cheers to Switzerland. We'll see ya next time.